So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about something that I'm going to be working on today. It's not the West Knits Knit Along, but I'm also going to be talking about my thoughts and some ideas I have for the West Knits Knit Along. So let's start with what I'm working on today, or what my focus is going to be today, because I want to have a whole new mindset today. I want to be stress-free. I have seriously given myself almost a migraine over this whole debacle, and I don't want it to get to that migraine part, and I don't want to go to that area. I don't want to do that. So I picked up a crochet shawl that I was working on a couple months ago, and it is in a very fall color palette. And I think that's what my soul needs right now. So this is the Bella Vita shawl by Wilma Westenberg. This thing has been a lot of fun to knit, to crochet. It's not knitting. Oh my. I really have enjoyed this. I'm using Sutton Deluxe Shine, and this is the colorway Baltic Ember. So it starts off in this yellow, and then it progresses to this orange, and to this gold, and then to this grayish blue. It does have sparkles. It is 96% cotton and 4% polyester, 250 grams, 1,093 yards. And I love this yarn so much because you cannot feel the sparkle, but it's there. Like, it is very, very soft. And it really has a beautiful drape to it. And I was much further along in this. I pulled out a lot. The reason I pulled out a lot was because this yarn is a slow gradient yarn. The color changes are subtle, but the way that mine was working up, there's this whole section of double crochet right here, and my yarn color changed right in the middle. And even though it's not an abrupt change, it was very, very noticeable, and it was very odd. It was very odd looking. It just stuck out, and I didn't like that. So I ripped it out. And then I did like an eyelet section, and then I started doing this, whatever this is. This is not even part of the pattern. This whole darker section is just something, I felt like it needed something to have some dramatic change, because to me that's a pretty darker color than this yellow. So I did the eyelet, and then I did a double crochet, skip one, and then a treble front post on the double crochet from the row below, and it kind of gives it this 3D effect, and I love that. I'm okay with it. And I started working on this. It made me realize something about my West Knits Knit Along. I really enjoy the process of knitting things. I am definitely a process knitter. I am not a product knitter. I like having the finished products, and in my over a decade of knitting and crocheting, I've only frogged and taken out and completely started over 10 things, if even that. I just don't quit things. I don't like the feeling that I get from doing that. I like to see something from the very beginning to the very end. And I really love the process of how you make this pinwheel. And even though this is the color block version of the original pattern, you know, it's now shamed upon and frowned upon. And I thought about that. And I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while to come to terms with the emotions that I was feeling regarding that. Because how can something that I enjoy, that brings me joy knitting, be such a shameful thing when it's not even that design? It's the color block version that was recommended. And it was hard. It was really hard to accept that that's just the way it is. And I know if I continue working this, I'm not gonna have the same joy. Going back to the question I was asking myself, what does this MKAL mean to me? And what does this journey mean to me? And this MKAL is something that I look forward to every year, or for the past 3 years. But even before that, I've always enjoyed doing at least one MKAL every year. And it's because of the community aspect for me. I don't get out a lot. I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm a caretaker. I literally leave my house once a week to go buy groceries, and typically that's about it. I am just in this season, and I'm okay with being in this season. I don't feel like I need to go out and do all these things. I'm happy, I'm content. But that's where my knitting comes in. That knitting and that crochet and that community is what gives me that contentment and that joy in my current season of life. And seasons change, you know, and we change. And I honestly think if I was to continue on with this pinwheel, there will always be that feeling of shame attached to it. So I thought about just leaving it on the stitch wire or binding it off and just letting it be. And then just sticking it somewhere, like a little banner of change somewhere in here when I get this place done. I would always see it and I would remember that whole thing. And time in our life is precious. Watching someone battle a disease like Alzheimer's and my grandmother before her who battled dementia, you really learn to appreciate the time that is before you. You know, I was so drawn to this because of that pinwheel, because of my mother-in-law who's Austrian's heritage. It's kind of like I'm knitting something that references her life that is now part of my life. You know, her life has now become intertangled with mine. And I thought that was super cool to have that. But there's no joy there anymore. There will be no community of joy with this. So I've come to realize that I think the only way that I can progress is by starting over new. I went through my yarn, what yarn I can actually get to, a lot of it's backed up. And I tried to pull out a colorway, a new color palette, I guess you can say. And I found these pretty colors that definitely have potential. They have a lot of potential. But I bought this yarn for this knit along. And my husband was like, you know, asking me what I was doing. And I was telling him, you know, I thought maybe to help me get through this, I'll just start over fresh. And he was like, but you were so excited for that fall yarn to use with this fall knit along. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, just let it go and start over with it. And I think hearing him say that, and then hearing him say how he noticed that I have been very stressed and reserved regarding this, it kind of opened my eyes. Because when I get stressed and when I have a lot of things on my mind, I shrink into the background and I get quiet. And it's like a part of me is trying to just be still and listen out for guidance. And he noticed that, and that made me realize how much it actually has affected my joy, and that made me sad. And I think he's right. I think the only way that I can get back to the joy that I get out of this knit along, the community aspect, is just to let this go. But because of my conversation with him regarding the whole thing, which I love my husband, he is so my people. He was like, well, what are you going to do for your center? And I don't know. I saw that crocheted version and I really love the look of the crochet and the knitting together. I love that someone is using both of those because I am both of those. I'm a knitter and I'm a crocheter. And so I got out some books and started looking through them. This is her Crochet Motifs Beyond the Square and her Connect the Shapes Crochet Motifs. And if you are a crocheter and you do not know who Edie Eckman is, we need to correct that situation because the woman has an amazing mind and she is just an amazing designer. I love her books because they're hardbound books, but they also have this spiral bound center and they lay flat, which is amazing. And the first one I looked at was this one right here, because how can you not want to grab this book? Look how colorful and pretty that is. So awesome. But in here she had a couple that I was like, okay, I can see that. I think because of my fall palette, something like this would do really well for me. It kind of has a little bit of autumnal vibes for whatever reason. And it's not just the basic granny that people are doing. I really want to stay in that geometric design though. I'm really worried if I do something that's too floral that it is going to really look weird when we do the rest of the shawl. But I just have a feeling with Steven and there's going to be a lot of crazy lines and stuff. So I'm kind of on the fence on something like this because I really saw this as a possibility and then just square it off. I like the geometric shapes with it, the circle and then the square, like keep making it big or just have a lot of lines around it. And then it's just going to be this really small square in the middle, and I wasn't really loving that idea. So I thought about doing something where I just get 4 of these motifs and just do like a section 4 of like these. But what if I do something that's kind of geometrical with a crochet stitch and do a square like this in the center and just keep making it larger and then do the lines around it. I like the hole. I think that would be a little homage to the taking out of the first clue. I know I don't want to do the revised growing square that is now the starting point of clue 1. And then I saw, you know, the barn raising square. I talked about it and I've done so many barn raising squares. With intentions of putting them together and making a blanket. I still need to make a lot more though to get the blanket size I want. But I don't want something that I've already done over and over to be the main focal point of a shawl. Because I like to wear my shawls. I love knitting shawls. And so I thought about doing the mitered square version, the little triangles. But I have a mitered square blanket on the needles right now. And it's kind of the same theory where I already have a project going in that. I don't want that to be the main focus of this shawl. So I'm either gonna have to do something with crochet or I can do something in knitting. So I started thinking, what can I put there? What can I put in that space to find some kind of halfway street of what would make me happy? And so I thought about doing something with cables. That was an option. This is actually the Knitting Stitch Bible. This is a great little book for some inspiration and stitch guides. And I thought about doing like a lace, something with in it to stay in that same geometric idea. And I came across this and I'm like, okay, that could possibly work there. That could be super cool. I can actually do that all in my 5th color. But while I was looking at this page, I saw Fair Isle. And I was like, that's an option. Because when you look at this shawl, if we had stayed with this version, I don't like the back of this. This is definitely a one-sided project to me because the back of it, you have these areas where the garter has 2 colors in them in some of the sections. So for me, that is definitely a one-sided project. If it's already going to be a one-sided project there, is it going to be that way through the rest of it? Which made me think, okay, I could do color work there. I don't know if I would want to do stranded knitting in that back panel because you have all the floats and it would just be risky that they can get caught on something. But intarsia is a whole different ball game. That is where the light bulb cut on for me. Because I've done intarsia before. I did it over the summer. I was sent a kit from Knitting Fever to try out and I loved intarsia. It was a lot of fun. And if I take this apart and I reuse these pieces, these are the perfect size to do little intarsia areas and I don't feel like I'm wasting that much yarn. So I was really intrigued by that possibility, which led me to these 2 books. So this is the 201 Knitting Motifs, Blocks, Projects, and Ideas. This is from Nikki Trench. And I thought about doing something like this plaid because my colors are fall and I think that would do very well there. But again, I worry about it being too dainty, I guess, for the rest of the shawl if it's going to be very geometrical. So then I grabbed this book out and this is the Geometric Knitting Patterns by Tina Barrett. And this book has a lot of wonderful ideas. There's so much stuff. There's over 750 geometric designs. So I thought about definitely doing something from here. So options for me would be something like this in a center panel. Something like this would be really cool. And then just do knitting around it. I really like that one. Something like this star would be super cool. And then I landed on this page, the starburst section. And this is kind of where I just left my book open for a while. I love this thing here. And the more I look at it, the more I'm just drawn to it, because I think that would be easy to change into a square. I also really appreciate this flower because it looks like a sunflower to me, and my colors are very fall. And then I saw this. I really like this whatever this is. This reminds me of a compass, and I really like that idea. I like that. This has definitely been a journey where we don't really know where it's going. And I think the compass would be a great homage to that. That or this starburst that leads into all these different paths. So that's kind of where I'm landing right now, is doing a intarsia center and then going from there. I don't know. What are your thoughts? It sounds kind of crazy, I know, but I think that would be kind of cool. But I'm also kind of worried, you know, like what's the next clue gonna be? And is it gonna make it look crazy if I do something like that? So that's where I'm at in my current situation. Do I go crochet? Do I go intarsia? Or do I just start even over with a whole new color? So I think I'm still gonna leave this in timeout today and work on my crochet shawl and just kind of let it all marinate in my mind as I think about it. But I don't know, like I love all those ideas. I really love the compass and stuff, but the reality is the new clue comes out in a few days. As much as I am a process knitter, I also don't like to fall behind, and I'm already gonna be behind because I have to start all over. So finding something quick and fast so I can get caught up, I think would also be beneficial to me, just because I can just not really dwell on the past and I can be in the present. So that's what I'm trying to process today as I work on my crochet shawl and just kind of let all of those thoughts and possibilities flow through my mind as I try to figure out and navigate my personal journey through this knit along. I hope to have a more stable idea to tell you tomorrow. And I would love to get a lot of footage today, but I have a lot of chores I have to do and nobody wants to watch me mop. So until tomorrow, my friends, I hope you have a wonderful day.